Hello, everyone. Today we're going to do another one of these onboarding webinars where we're helping people to develop within inclusive skating. And the key task that I would like to do today is to show people how they actually go through a step-by-step process of how you actually log into the inclusive skating Moodle and actually explore the resources that are there and make sure that everyone is in a position that they could either do it themselves to be able to log on and self-enroll onto a course, and also what resources are available there for you to use. So I'm going to share my screen because I've set this up already. And that is the homepage for the Inclusive Skating Moodle. Now, so that we can effectively create a set of instructions for someone to follow in the event that something goes wrong or they can't manage to do it. Exactly. Right. And from what I can tell, the system seems to require you to actually reset your password. Even although I haven't set it to do that, it seems to insist upon you resetting the password. It seems to be one of these default security settings. So that's something to bear in mind, is that almost always after the first time that you've logged in, reset the password to something else. And if you forget, well then literally just use the forgot password section and just reset the password. So that's really helpful. Okay, so before we actually scroll down, I thought it might be quite useful to sort of like go through what each of these different tabs are across the top. So that there is the home screen. So if you just reload that, that's effectively just this page. And you can always access that by clicking on that link there. Now that's my dashboard, right? And that gives you basically a history of all the things that you're actually doing. And it sort of like tells you who's actually sort of like doing it. If you want to hide your online status, you can actually go on and click that I button and it will hide yourself as a user from everyone else. Right, so that's the dashboard, and that will give a record of everything that you've actually been doing. This one is obviously the inclusive skating sort of like test account. So what we're going to do now is we're actually going to do what we actually planned to do, which was to enroll for some of the courses. And when I click on that, there's no current enrollment, so there's nothing in that. So let's go back to the home page. And the one that we're actually wanting to do is all the way down at the bottom. Okay, that gives you the list of all the available courses, and the safety course, because it was the first one that was set up, is the one down at the very bottom. Right, so let's just click on that. Right, okay, and across the top you've got what you've actually done. You went to the home screen, you went to the courses, you clicked on the safety course, you've arrived here now within the safety advisor course, and then the next thing is enroll me in this course. So if you want to enroll in this course, you click on that link and that enrolls you in the course. Okay, so now what I'm hoping you should be able to see is that when we go to my courses, let's see, we might need to refresh it. Let's have a wee look. Let's try that again. Let's go back. Oh, down at the bottom, self-enrollment for volunteer. Let's try it there. We're going to click on it there. Ah, now that looks better, doesn't it? So now when we go up to my courses, all of a sudden we are enrolled. So the best way to actually to make sure that that works is to go down to the very bottom. Perfect. Okay, now I've actually completed what I actually wanted to do. I'm going to leave you then to take the course. Let's do something different now. Can we go back to the screen, right? This opening section just sort of is a bit of advertising about the most important things that you can actually do. But this gives you quick links to the ones that I thought would be sort of like quite helpful to have. So you can go straight from here to the dashboard, or to the Inclusive Skating YouTube channel, or to the Inclusive Skating website. And do you want me to give that as an example? So like that dashboard now takes you to this screen, and because we've now enrolled on the safety course, you can actually see now that that is immediately, showing up, and it tells you how far you've actually completed the actual course itself. So that gives you an overview of the actual place where you actually are in the course itself. Now, if we go back to the home screen, we went to dashboard there. This takes you to the YouTube channel, which is the inclusive skating one. And you can see this has got all the different playlists. And some of them are really, really helpful. If you go to the playlists, there's ones there which have got things like volunteer know-how, so on how to use things like the frames, there's training materials. There's also videos for all of the badge skills. So I'll just show you the full playlist. So the actual skills that people do when they're doing inline skating, for example, there's actually a video of every single badge right the way through, tier 3, all of them. It's quite a lot, isn't there? So the whole of those ones for tier 3. I've got more to add, might I add, so it's going to be one of the jobs that Olivia and I are going to be doing over the next while. You can see that there's quite a lot of them, and there's very good materials and things like the off-ice activities. So what we do is we've been running all of these off-ice webinars, and then they get cut and edited and then uploaded, so you can actually, you know, access some of the sessions and actually use them, you know, for your own training purposes, which can be really helpful. And a lot of the skaters find it really helpful to use these because they've actually got the opportunity to do them in their own time. So sometimes if they're feeling a bit fed up, and, you know, particularly we've been in lockdown, they've actually had quite a lot of videos to go on to watch. Okay, so that takes you to that. Right, so that's us back at the main homepage. We had previously clicked on that. Then this link will take you straight through to the inclusive skating website. And it's really helpful to know that within the menu is that we've actually got resources. So if you're actually looking for any of the inclusive skating resources, you can do a quick search because there's a content management system built into the website, so that anything that you want to find within the website can actually be found through that. And all of these systems have actually got different like menus that are available within them. So for example, Get Involved, which is the one mainly for volunteers, you've actually got a whole range of different resources that are available to you. Okay. So you can sort of click on them. The equipment one I think is particularly helpful. And that gives you information on equipment and also where you can purchase it from. We've actually got quite a few of those resources available here, you know, that we can actually provide for you if you're setting up sessions. Some of them are bespoke. So for example, you know, that equipment is bespoke. Okay, any questions on that? No, that's fine. We've also got a shop. So Kit Locker, once you're a member of Inclusive Skating, you also get the opportunity to purchase discounted equipment and also to be able to get branded Inclusive Skating kit. And that's available for purchase through Kit Locker, and you just use the password that you were given in your welcome email to get the information. And if you ever want to get the link, just as a sort of like a helpful, that you can click directly straight through to the Kit Locker shop, you know, from this part of the website. And you can also enter events, and you can also go to your Sport 80 platform from here. So let's have a look at the courses that are available. Now, the most important course in terms of safety is actually the Off-Ice Tier 1 Skills Programme. So I'm actually going to click on that first of all. Right, so this is a course that this person has never actually done. So they've actually got to be enrolled into this course if they want to take it. So I'm just going to enroll me on it. You are enrolled in the course. So that time it worked the other way, didn't it? You had to click up at the top. That's interesting. I'll find out now why that worked. Right, so there's a flaw in the system there, obviously. Right, let's have a wee look now. So this is the Off-Ice Tier 1 Skills Badge Programme. Now, Tier 1 is generally designed for people that are with very, very high support needs. So I'll give you a bit of information. That gives us sort of like general information about what people are actually required to do during the course. And there's also the full badge skills and test course handbook. So if you click on that, you can actually download the whole thing. Okay. And this gives you a bit of sort of like background information to the skills program. And the tier 1 is for the physically facilitated and intellectually facilitated skater skills program. They've got very high skating support needs, and most activities are performed with a facilitator. Now, one of the things we discovered with experience of working with these skaters is that you've got a very high number of people with an intellectual challenge who are not able to follow instructions. And particularly if you've got things like, high levels of autism, that they were taking a very long time even to get in the door and, to progress through the system, and also to sort of create a protocol of how every skater should start, but broken down in such a way that it could actually provide a method for absolutely everyone to be able to access the sport and to be able to achieve something. So that's why tier 1 was actually devised. And what you'll find is that people with average skating support needs, the tier 1 effectively is how you should do it, how you should actually welcome someone to skating activities. And it's almost got like the safety course bedded into it. In terms of what the skaters actually do on the ice, skaters with average skating support needs for inclusive skating will actually, in terms of the badges that they acquire, will actually start at tier 2. That's the appropriate starting point for the award of certificates. Skaters that have got, I would say, a normal average intellectual ability, but they've got some additional needs, then they are much more likely to progress at a faster pace, particularly in the early stages, generally speaking, because they've got low skating balance needs. But they do need the supportive environment, maybe because they're deaf, or because, they've got a vision impairment or such like, or maybe just because, they've got a medical condition. Right, so let's have a look at the sort of like the general points in relation to the badge program. All the skaters should try to complete 10 skill badges and obtain certificates in one or more of the tiers indicated. And they should always go to the tier that meets their current technical ability. Apart from the fact that, as I said, tier 1 is for absolutely everyone. It's like the protocol of how to start. Skaters are allowed to progress through all of the tiers, so they can actually choose. So we've enrolled in this particular one, which is where I'd want everyone to kind of like download and get all the information and to go through everything. But they can actually go through tier 1 and then tier 2 and tier 3 without any sort of distinction. And they can also do all these activities both on the ice and also off the ice. And they can do them also on inline skating. And if they choose the block that's got inline skating, the certificates have got wheels on them, as in like the skating boot's got wheels, they've got an inline boot. Whereas if it's ice skating that they're doing and they've clicked on the ice skating link, then the certificates have got an ice skating boot on them. So it does reflect what they've actually done. There is a difference between them. Okay, so you're allowed to progress through. Skills and badges may be assessed by a video using the online system. So once they've actually completed the activities, there's actually an option that they can upload the video onto the system. And if they have, if they're lucky enough to have their own coach or to have a volunteer available to assist and support them, then obviously we've got all the certificates uploaded onto the website, so the coaches can just download the certificates and write the names in themselves, so they don't have to do the uploading. And we've also got the possibility of actually changing the status for our volunteers. So for example, Olivia and Bronwyn, we can actually make you a teacher on this. So you can actually pass the people directly on their part of the Moodle, so that they would then get sent their certificate directly to them, because you can authorize the pass and the issue of the certificate. And then it would go directly to that person's email. Okay. So some sort of like general things. A rink is any surface suitable for skating. Participation in activities may occur physically or by virtual means. So we're absolutely fine about people actually like recording videos, as I've said, or to be assessed in person. 1 foot skills are performed on right foot and left foot separately. Okay, unless of course the person is, as does actually happen, only has 1 leg. But generally speaking, things are to be right foot and left foot. And we certainly like to get people to try, even if they can't quite manage things. So application to enter the skills, bearing in mind this document is also available on the website as a PDF. So if people are actually wanting to find the link to be able to access the inclusive skating learning platform, I've just got the link there again, just to make sure that people know how to get themselves back into the learning platform. The user account, which is what you've both got, is available for everyone who's registered with inclusive skating. And what we do when people join up with inclusive skating is that I go into the system and create a link for them on our MailChimp system so they get circulated with the mail and the access to, for example, these sorts of courses. And I also create a registration user on the inclusive skating Moodle automatically so that they then get access to the system automatically. And once that's done, it then means that the certificates go to the skater directly with their name on it. And so that's why the email that is registered on the platform is really important, because that email gets created, gets used to create their individual username. And I'll always use their email attached to that name. And it is really important that we've got both, because believe it or not, we do actually have quite a number of people that have got the same name. So it is really important that we've got a unique identifier, and the unique identifier is always the email. Okay, so let's have a look at what Tier 1 actually is. These are the different requirements for Tier 1, and you can see that there are 10 badges, right? So, and this very much reflects the safety course. So badge 1, they've got to be able to enter the Rink venue and go to registration and participate in the provision of registration details. So that's to get onto the inclusive skating platform. And they've got to be able to participate in the risk assessment with the activity leader. Now, what we recommend is that as many of those stages as possible can be done virtually. So, for example, the registration can be done online before they ever get to the rink. The risk assessment can be done with the activity leader, again, online before they ever get to the rink, so that you can actually, deal with a lot of that admin in advance. But you can see we've actually given subcredit to the person even for entering the Rink venue and going to registration, because for some of our athletes, that is quite a challenge. We've had one child that spent 5 weeks in the car park before they managed to get in the door. So because of that, we were then able to give them badge 1, because it actually, for them, that was a huge achievement. Okay. So badge 2, go to the side of the rink and be in the rink environment. So even moving from the place where they come in into the side of the rink, because there'll be things like it's a big place, there's often noises going on, there's a difference usually in temperature, particularly if they go into the ice rink, and just being in the rink environment can be quite a challenge. So that is something that we give credit to. For the children with autism, is what we often do to help them to be able to settle is to give them time just to touch the skating boots and to touch the balance frame. So they're not being asked to put them on too quickly. What you're doing at that stage is just introducing them. And I've had children that have actually gone through that stage, and we allow them to touch the skating boots and just explore them and get to grips with that sort of stage in the process before we asked them to put them on. And they actually spent 2 or 3 weeks at that stage before they ever went to the next stage. And so again, if you've got a child that's at that stage, that's where they are in the process, you've got a badge certificate that you can reward them accordingly. Badge 3, put on the skating boots and put on the safety equipment and clothing and participate in the safety briefing. And again, that's something that you want everyone to be able to do. Now, obviously, an average person is probably going to go straight through all of those 3 stages without, a moment's thought. But for some children, that can be particularly challenging. Okay, badge number 4, that they should wear the skating boots for a few minutes. Now, that can be really important, particularly if you've got someone that has got cerebral palsy, because it takes several minutes, usually on average 3 minutes, for spastic muscle to relax. So what I've discovered with quite a few of those skaters is that you've actually got to give them the opportunity to allow the heel to go into plantar flexion so that they can actually get the heel to sit inside the boot. And when everyone else is rushing onto the ice, a child that's got cerebral palsy and is waiting for the heel to come down in the boots can feel very disadvantaged and very isolated. So if you're aware that you've got a child that has got cerebral palsy and they've got problems with the heel coming down in the boot, the fact that we've actually got a badge there that says wear skating boots for a few minutes will actually give them credit for that particular stage. And so knowing who the skaters are can be really helpful. So again, you can reward, that sort of excellent behaviour. Children that have got, high levels of physical facilitation will then usually also have a balance aid, and that's got to be adjusted. So there can be quite a bit involved, particularly with the cerebral palsy skaters with this stage, getting them to wear skating boots for a few minutes, participate in the adjustment of the balance height to meet their needs, and also to participate in a meeting of the coaches and the volunteers to be able to see how you're actually going to manage that skater as they move from the rink side onto the ice. So again, you've got a badge to reward someone that is at that stage in the process. Badge number 5, moving to the barrier side of the rink. And again, that is really quite an important sort of like step-by-step process, because usually as that happens, the skater, particularly if they've got autism, will suddenly become very aware that the ice is white. And it's very, very sort of like, there's quite a bit of glare, and that can be a bit intimidating for some of them. So even sort of getting them to move to the rink side and feeling the cold wind as people are skating by can be really quite helpful, so that you've actually broken that stage down. At that stage, they should also be able to demonstrate how to enter the rink safely, because obviously that's one of the things covered in the safety course, so that they've covered all of those safety issues. And then you want them to be on the rink surface for a few minutes using the relevant support, either standing or supported. Okay, and again, you've got a badge to reward someone at that stage. Badge 6, whilst on the rink, bend knees and move closer to the ice. Now, with a lot of the people with a physical, particularly a high level of physical facilitation, bending knees or moving closer to the ice will depend upon what their abilities are. Some of them might not be able to get right down. So by just making them make some potential adjustment of their body, it means then that you can reward someone where that is a huge achievement. Not sure if you've sort of like seen videos of some of the skaters, but you can see people that'll be on a harness or something, and they just want to sort of like explore touching this and getting closer to it. Children with autism very often want to touch the ice because they're sort of quite overwhelmed by the fact that this thing is quite cold, and they want to see what it actually is. So we've seen some of them actually want to get down on the ice, but a lot of them do want to touch it, and that's fine. Just make sure that they're safe whilst they're doing so. And certainly the fact that they move closer to the ice allows them to explore that. What we also want them to do when they're on the ice at this stage is just get comfortable in the environment. So we're asking them also to stretch their arms up and move their arms closer to the ceiling, so that they're aware that there's a space above them. And we also want them to stretch their arms out to the side and or touch the balance frame, so that they're beginning to take a little bit more control over the space that they occupy, and that they're aware that they've actually got space and an environment that they can exist within. So that's very much about them exploring being on the ice and exploring the space around them. And again, you've got a certificate to reward that behaviour. Badge number 7, we just want them to be able to move across the ice. So they're now safe in their own space. They've got themselves like sufficiently balanced. Can they move across the rink surface for a distance of 1 metre? And we want them then to be able to stop moving across the ice surface safely and demonstrate knowledge of how to get up from a fall. So that would be your normal starting point in a badge programme with most of the able-bodied systems. They want people to sort of like demonstrate how to get up and actually do it. With us, they've only got to demonstrate knowledge, because not all of them will be able to do it. For a lot of the kids with severe physical needs, it's really difficult for them to do that. So if you were to insist upon that being badge number 1, they're never going to achieve anything. At this stage, make sure that they just know what to do, and also what systems you've got in place that should they fall over, how would you actually get them back up off the ice? So you make sure that you know and they know how they're going to get up from a fall. Okay. And if they're, for example, like Lucy and Grant's in a wheelchair, you want them to be able to move across the rink surface for a distance of 1 metre. So it could be them being facilitated. So there's no requirement that they've got to be able to skate at this stage. They've just got to be able to move. And that may actually be quite a challenge, for someone at that stage, just allowing themselves to move across the ice. And it might be that you've got a child with autism that does it, on their hands and knees. at this stage, if it was a child with severe autism, you would accept that. There wouldn't be any challenge. The fact that they've actually started to move from their existing position to where they are across the ice is actually quite an achievement at that stage. And again, you've got a badge to reward that behaviour accordingly. Badge number 8, we want them to move backwards across the ice. So again, that's now beginning to sort of develop the concept that on skating, you can move forward, but you can also move backwards. And we're also wanting them to learn how to rotate their body so that they're learning to rotate their body from right to left. And someone with high levels of cerebral palsy, that could actually be quite a challenge. So again, we've got a certificate to reward that behaviour. Badge number 9 is actually one of the ones that I think is one of the most important stages, because at that stage, they move towards the volunteer or the coach. And what I'm really hoping that we actually start to get there is some connection between the person that they've now become happy in themselves and where they are on the ice. They're beginning to move, but they're now beginning to trust the individual that they're going to be working with, that being the volunteer and the coach, so that they'll move towards the volunteer and coach, and potentially also copy a movement or follow an instruction. And the ability to follow an instruction is crucial to the coaching process. And that's really where we want to be able to get these skaters to be able to move to. And the other thing I would like at this stage is at the beginning to do the Swizzles movement standing still, so that at the beginning, if they've got their blades on their feet with their skating boots on, that they can actually start to move their boots around. So you're beginning to know that there's the potential for some really good skating going to happen in the future. And you can give them a certificate to reward them for that behaviour. And then badge number 10, consecutive movement, rotating to the right and rotating to the left 1/4 of a turn. Move forward or stroking across the full width of the rink, and a gliding movement holding still in position for 3 seconds. So that would be like the sort of like the essence of, you know, people at this level, whether or not they've actually got the ability to move forward and then hold still whilst they're actually moving. And they should be able to do that whether or not they're using a frame or whether or not they're actually independent. Are there any questions about that? No. Once I issued this, I got contacted by the Autism Society, and they were thrilled that it had actually been broken down to this extent, because it really helps to reward children or adults that have got high levels of support needs. And they really liked the breakdown. So they were actually sort of like thinking of giving it an award or something, or having a system built in that could actually recognise, that this breakdown really helps skaters with those very high levels of support needs. Now this is tier 2. And now this is a really good way of preparing people that you're actually going to take on the ice. Bearing in mind that this is the off-ice programme, and the people that I think this is really especially helpful for are people who are deaf, who've got a hearing impairment. And when you put them on the ice, they're going to get left behind, because they're not going to be able to hear the coach very often. And it really helps them to know what you're actually going to do when you actually take them onto the ice to do an activity. And this is going to move at a much more normal pace for the inclusive skaters. And this would be the sort of like the average progress that would take place for an inclusive skater. So it's not as fast as the able-bodied, like Skate UK, but it's much more appropriate to where the average inclusive skater would be. So the badge number 1, standing unassisted on the rink for 5 to 10 seconds. So that's just whether or not they can actually be there. Knee dip standing still, and march forward independently or with the balance frame for 1 metre. Badge number 2, fall and stand up unassisted safely. Swizzles movement standing still, and march across the rink for 3 to 5 metres or to the centre of the rink unassisted. Okay. Badge number 3, a 2-foot glide for 3 to 5 seconds. Swizzles movement whilst moving, and a forward glide and bend knees. So with bearing in mind this is off ice, people would actually be sort of like mimicking what they're actually going to do when they're on the ice. So they would be showing you what they actually do. Okay. Just see. Badge number 4, forward 2-foot glide for 1 metre and wait until the glide stops. Forward wiggle or march for 1 metre and rotate 1 circle with marching feet in place. Okay, so you can see what we've actually done there from badge number 3, that they're beginning to do 2-foot glides and Swizzles movements while moving. And then badge number 4, you're beginning to introduce the concept of waiting for the glide just to peter out. So they're not stopping as such, but they are beginning to move. And they're also now also beginning to rotate more. They're actually beginning to walk round the circle, so to speak, and they're also beginning to do beginning of some like backward movements. Badge number 5, consecutive forward swizzles. So that's when they're doing the lemons or whatever you want to call them. There's lots of words across the world. And a 2-foot glide, rotating arms to the right and holding for 1/4 of a circle or for 1 meter. So that we're really looking out for the beginning of rotational movement across the body, both to the right and also to the left, so that they're beginning to get a bit more control. And you can see this is all done on 2 feet, because the skaters that are inclusive skaters spend a lot more time on 2 feet. Badge number 6, by this stage, we're hoping that they're going to march across the full width of the rink. And by this stage, they should be able to do a beginner's snowplow stop. And if they've been able to do the 2-foot glide and just wait for the glide to stop, it's usually by this stage a little bit easier then to get them to start to do the stop, particularly if they've started doing some backward wiggles and they're beginning to learn how to turn the toes in. They've got an understanding of what it means to have your toes turned in. And that's had quite a lot of reinforcement with the badge number 5, because by this stage they're beginning to do 3 to 5. So they've got this concept of the toes moving out and in, which you can then use when you're actually wanting to use that for the snowplow stop. Badge number 6, consecutive 2-foot glides, rotating arms 1/4 to the left and then to the right. So again, that just is like building up more forward skating skills along with the stop. Badge number 7, which I tend not to see in badge programs across the world, but in actual fact, what I've noticed over the years is it's one of the things that the skaters themselves, you know, have as a challenge for themselves very commonly, and it's being able to skate around the whole rink. So we've actually got that in badge number 7. We're actually looking for people to skate once around the full rink and then to be able to do a 2-foot glide and do an active stop. So there's a difference between the beginner snowplow at 6, which is very much, you know, done at a slower pace. Badge number 7, we really want them to be skating around the full rink, glide, and then do an active stop so that they really are in control of the skate. And at this stage, then we're also looking for them to be able now to do a forward glide and turn to backwards. So they're beginning to get a bit more control over the body. Badge number 8, then we're looking for them to start bending. So they're doing the forward gliding dip. We're also beginning to see whether or not they're beginning to transition to becoming a 1-foot skater. So at this stage, we ask them to do the 1-foot glide, and we're also seeing whether or not they can actually release the feet from the ice and actually do a bit of a jump. So that's badge number 8. Badge number 9, a 2-foot glide for a half circle clockwise and counterclockwise, a backward march for a distance of 3 to 5 meters or to the center of the rink, and forward skating with a push from the right foot and the left leg. And that can be quite a challenge for quite a few of the inclusive skaters, because you'll find that very often as a result of challenges that they've got, they're one-sided. So what we're trying at that stage is trying to encourage that they're developing equally on both sides, so that when they go onto 1 foot, that they're not becoming very one-sided, which could actually increase the potential for more problems. What we're really looking for is for the potential for them to develop equally across the body and make sure that the weaker side develops. So we're really looking for them to do both. Any questions on that? No? Okay. Badge number 9, 2-foot glide. So we've done badge number 9. Badge number 10, a 2-foot turn from forwards to backwards whilst moving, backward swizzles whilst moving, and a beginner jump whilst moving. Okay, so at that stage, that's really the sort of like the top end of the range of the badge number 10. Any questions? Right. Physically independent and visually independent skaters badge program. Right, so forward march to the middle of the rink. I'm actually doing the one that's the skates program actually rather than the off ice, I've just noticed. This is much faster pace. So for this one, you would use this one, as I said earlier, for the people that have got no intellectual challenge as such, and that can follow instructions quickly and are likely to progress quicker. And that's a judgment call for the coaches or the volunteers to decide where they think the appropriate starting point is. And if you're in doubt, start at tier 2. But if you actually think the person's going to be starting quite quickly, or they've maybe been attending public sessions and they're already, quite well advanced, you might want to start them at tier 3. And certainly if they had done, for example, ice skating, then they were transferring across to the inline skating, which has got all of these exact same badges, then you would probably start an experienced ice skater starting inlines, at tier 3, even if they would, under normal circumstances, be a tier 2 skater. Okay, if they were starting from scratch. So the badge 1, forward march straight to the middle of the rink. From standing position, fall and get back up again safely and unassisted. Again, because this person you've decided has got no additional challenges. And a forward 2-foot glide and come to a standstill. Badge number 2, forward 2-foot swizzles. That's got 5 consecutive. Forward 2-foot glide and bend the knees. And a forward 2-foot glide, rotating the arms clockwise and repeating counterclockwise. And you can see that the steps that we had in the tier 2 aren't here within this. And that's because skaters that have got more able and have got better understanding can actually progress to this much quicker. And they would get irritated by you breaking it down too much. So it's really important that you make the decision as the coach or the volunteer where you think the right starting point is for your skater. And that's built into the safety coach. Remember I said, choose the starting point for the skater. This gives you a framework within which you can choose what the starting point is for your particular skater. Badge number 3, forward march or stroking across the full width of the rink, backward march for 1 metre and a 1/2 rotation on 2 feet in place. Again, because you're wanting now to start to build up the ability to turn from forwards to backwards, which you then use in badge number 4. You've got them skating forwards onto 2 feet and turning to backwards, building up on the skill that you had at badge 3. Badge number 4, there's a forward gliding dip on 2 feet for the length of the body and a beginner 2-foot bunny hop, jump in place. Badge number 5, backward swizzles, 5 consecutive. Skate forwards using both legs and a 1-foot snowplow stop. And a forward 2-foot glide with lean into the circle for 1/3 of the circle clockwise and 1 counterclockwise. And you can see because the skaters obviously clearly got much more ability because you've assessed that they're going to progress much more quicker. We're now allowing them to lean. Whereas if you look at tier 2, at no point were they asked to lean because they were obviously much more balance inhibited. So the key difference between tier 2 and tier 3 will be that level of understanding and the ability to balance. Skaters that are going to progress quicker don't have any problems with balance usually. Okay, any questions about that? No. And the assessment of the balance can be quite a challenge, particularly if you've not been coaching for very long. I've been coaching or involved with skating development now for 50 years. So I almost look at the person and can sort of see it. But it's a really good thing to do some exercises with them off the ice. So that's where, these are replicated in the off ice. You can actually make an assessment whether or not they're actually able to stand on 1 foot, whether or not they can go up to the toes or back again. And we'll cover that very shortly. Badge number 6, forward 1-foot glide in a straight line, right and left for 1 metre. Backward 2-foot glide for the length of the body. Forward 2-foot glide with 1 foot performing swizzles. So that's the 1-foot swizzles, taking them around the circle, which allows you to see whether or not they've actually got the ability to lean and also to control 1 leg. And they're a really good pumping action. I think they really help to build up power as well. And the skaters tend to use them a lot, but they tend not to be built into badge programs. But Planet Ice have got them in their system, actually, to be fair to Planet Ice. And the Skate Excellence program. Badge number 7, a backward 2-foot glide with 1 foot performing swizzles on a circle clockwise and counterclockwise. Again, so that is the pumping action. And again, it's a great way of building up the strengths to be able to do backward crossovers. Badge number 7, 2, consecutive forward 2-foot curves, left and right, repeated 2 or 3 times. And again, that's you beginning to develop the ability to change edge and to move from circle to circle. Badge number 7, forward skating full circuit of the rink and a 2-foot snowplough stop. So again, that's this lovely fast skating around the whole rink and a good active stop. Badge number 8, skate backwards for 3 to 5 metres and turn to forwards. A forward 1-foot glide for 1 metre on a circle left and right, clockwise and counterclockwise. So that's assessing the ability, whether or not they've actually got the ability to lean on an edge and actually skate on a circle. So you're building up an understanding of whether or not they've actually got the ability to lean on an edge. Forward skating with a full circuit of the rink, pushing on both right and left leg down the length of the rink. So for that one, we're looking now for much more extended, stroking action, so that we're building up a proper skating stroking action. Badge number 9, skate backwards for a distance of 10 metres, a single forward crossover and step onto a glide on 1 foot or 2 feet, clockwise and counterclockwise. As you can see from the exercises that we've done in the prior ones, we've actually assessed their ability to skate on an edge on each leg before we've actually asked them to do the crossover. And we've also got a beginner 2-foot bunny hop jump while it's moving. Okay, and we've done the stationary ones earlier on in the system, so they've had a good preparation for that. Badge number 10, a backward 1-foot glide left and right for the length of the body, and a backward gliding dip on 2 feet, and consecutive beginner forward crossovers. So that's being able to put the whole thing together. Okay, any questions on that? Right. Now, what I had done was I obviously, not thinking about it actually, was I actually took you through the ICE program rather than the off-ice program. So that was a bit silly of me. Sorry about that, folks. This is actually where we should have started, because this is the off-ice program when you're wearing footwear and not skates. So my apologies for that. So this is the actual protocol that you should be following when you've actually got the skaters in before you actually take them onto the ice at all. And the badge one is create the profile on the inclusive skating platform, verify the email and go to the membership registration, and participate in the provision of the registration details and complete the registration on the platform and participate in the risk assessment. So that again is doing it all virtually before you ever get to the rink. And that's what we really recommend that people do. That's the ideal scenario. What we've got built into when you've got them on skates is the reality of what happens in a lot of the rinks. You don't actually get the opportunity to do it in advance. So that's where we've actually got the possibility of actually doing it on site. But it's far better if you possibly can to do before they ever get to the rink. Badge number 2, this can be really helpful if you've got skaters who need a lot more help and support to get on. And bearing in mind also that it could be inline skating as well as ice skating. So you've got to identify a location that is suitable and safe for skating for them. Okay. And that could also be what time is available, when you're going to have volunteers and such like. So there may actually be a bit more work involved in that. Ensure that there's available skating boots that are safe for your use. Now, when you're dealing with a lot of people, for example, with Down syndrome or Bardet-Biedl syndrome, very often they can have foot abnormalities. They can have like spaces between their toes. They've got very wide feet, no arches, so they might not be able to use the normal skating hire boots. And if you suspect that that's a possibility, remember that you've got that equipment link that's on the website that will allow you to actually advise on the possibility of them purchasing boots. Now, if we have more people like that and I get more funding, now it's quite possible that we might manage to get a stock of those boots that would be available for people to take a loan of, and that could be something that we could provide for you. It is obviously possible to do made to measures, which you can do if you're dealing with someone with cerebral palsy, because then you can build in their supports into the skating boot. And you can see from the one that we've got the photo of on the screen, that's transformed her skating, because she's actually got the real support around the leg, and it gives her and it fits perfectly, so it's very comfortable for her. Badge number 3, teach them how to put on the skating boots, how to put on the safety equipment and clothing, for example, a helmet and gloves, and participate in a safety briefing. And I think it's a really good idea to have a badge, for that stage, because lots of people kind of, it's a bit like arriving at the swimming pool, you just want to jump straight in without actually doing the safety stuff. It's really good if you actually build that into the system. And if you're setting up a program, it's really helpful to actually, send this out to people in advance and sort of say, look, these are the steps in the process that we're actually going to want you to do. And you can see this is where where it mimics what's actually going to take place on the ice. And again, because this is tier 1, you've got the same reflection of what people should actually be doing, when they're off ice, because particularly if you've got someone with cerebral palsy, they may actually have the boots in the house before they ever get on the ice. And you might be suggesting to them that they wear the skating boots for a few minutes. Or it might be because they've got inline skates and they're going to be able to do it. And again, you're going to be doing all these things that you did, on the ice. Participate in the adjustment of balances and equipment, because if they've got the skates there, you can do that work there and then. And you're going to have a meeting with your coaches and volunteers to discuss how you're going to actually meet the skaters' needs when they get on the ice. Badge number 5, they're going to move safely to the barrier side of the rink, again, because it could be in line. And also learn how to remove any guards that are on skates, so that they would know what to do. And it can be really helpful if you've got someone with autism, that you actually say, look, we're going to pretend that we've got a barrier here. Let's see you move across to the barrier, and then we're going to take your guards off the boots. Even that sort of like simple step can be really quite important. And you'll find that some of the kids with autism will have a special way that they want the guards put on the barrier. Okay. In fact, I remember Rebecca Andrew, the Australian coach, judge, and she was holding a competition, and they had to stop the whole competition because the guards went on the barrier in the correct way. That's the way that some of these kids can be. So then you can actually go through the process of demonstrating how you enter the rink safely. For example, standing side by side. So you're not going to step on forwards, you're going to make sure that you actually step on the rink sideways, making sure that you're not stepping in the path of anyone, and that you're courteous to the other ice users. And stepping on one foot at a time, no jumping onto the ice and coming off the back of your heels. And demonstrate using the relevant support, either standing or while supported, how you're actually going to be standing on the ice. Badge number 6, again, demonstrate what you're actually going to do in terms of bending the knees and moving closer to the ice. Some of these skaters will not understand what the word bend is. They won't understand where their knees are or what the concept of bending their ankles are. So it's really helpful to actually make sure that they know what bend your knees actually means. So you might actually find that more helpful. If you say like move closer to the ice, very often they'll actually just bend their knees automatically because you're telling them where you want them to go. So that can be an easier tool rather than telling them what body part to move. Again, stretching up or move your arms closer to the ceiling so that you're giving them where they're aiming for can actually help them a little bit more than sort of saying, I want you to go to the right with your arm. Sometimes, they might not do that. Whereas if you actually point over there, sometimes you'll get a quicker response because they'll find the instruction a little bit easier to follow. And you also want them to touch, if they're going to have a balance frame, make sure that they get used to touching it so that it becomes their friend if they're going to be using that. Demonstrate how to move forward for a distance of 1 meter. Demonstrate how to stop moving safely, and demonstrate knowledge of how to get up from a fall, so that between yourselves and the volunteers, you know how you're going to manage that person should they fall over, and that they fully understand what's going to happen in the process. If they can do it, all the better, but make sure that you know how you're going to manage that person getting up from the fall before you actually take them on the ice. Don't have that voyage of discovery on the ice. Try to have this voyage of discovery whilst you're, got them safely off the ice. Demonstrate how to move backwards across the rink for a distance of 1 meter. So again, that could be getting them to do, their toes turned in so that they know what they're doing. Demonstrate how to look to the left, and also how to rotate 1/4, so that they've got an understanding of how to move the body, and also that you can be watching them and actually saying, can they move their body? So for example, if you've got someone with scoliosis, you'll actually start to assess whether or not they've actually got a twist in their body, and that's actually going to cause balance issues when they start moving on the ice. So it's quite a useful tool at this stage, because what you're really doing is you're really assessing their ability to move their body and their ability to understand instructions. And again, that's to be done both left and right. Badge number 9, moving towards the volunteer, the coach, and following one instruction. And it's really helpful to do that off the ice, because you're then building up that rapport. And then the Swizzles movement, standing still, so that you know that they've got an understanding of the penguin position for starting, which is where you want them all to be starting if at all possible. And that they've also got an understanding of how to turn their toes in, so that when you're asking them to do that for the stop in the future and to get some control, that they've got some ability to move the feet and you know exactly what you're dealing with. And then badge number 10, consecutive movement, rotating to the right and then rotating to the left, so that they've got, you know, easy movement of body on both sides. And demonstrate how to move forwards or stroking across the full width of the rink, and demonstrate how to do a gliding movement holding still. And that can be really helpful, because some of these skaters don't understand the concept that they can actually stand still and keep moving, and that they can get their balance. So it's a really useful skill to be able to teach them before they get on the ice, so that you've got a strategy. So if they start to lose balance, you can sort of say, do the glide. So you can take them to that position, they can get their balance before they go off. Any questions on that? We have actually done a full hour. I should actually have done all of the off ice before we did the skating, right? The off ice very much replicates what the skill is on the ice. It's the exact same, but there's more in it. So for example, there's things like in badge 7, standing on one foot and rising to the ball of the foot. And again, that's really helpful, because that's part of the balance assessment. So you can actually see to what extent they've got the ability to actually to control, you know, their weight on the skate. And that they've also got, you'll see that there's things, for example, leaning on one foot to the side. So it's standing on 2 feet, place weight on the back of the foot, so that you actually see that they can actually prepare for a back turn. And badge number 9, you can actually see standing on one foot and leaning with the weight to the little toe, so that they've got an understanding of how they're going to lean for an outside edge or for inside edges. So these are all good skills to be developing off the ice. Okay. And again, same thing for badge tier number 3. We'll go through that in a bit more detail later on. Okay, because that's proper off ice. Any questions? No. Okay, right. Let's come out of that. So that's the sort of the introduction. Then when they go on to each of the different courses, everything that I said, bearing in mind this is the tier 1 off ice skills. If they had actually, this says what the actual skill actually is, and it's got a video assessment where they can actually upload the video assessment. Okay. Right, and you get smart. So I'm just going to click this. Right, so you can see that they can actually upload by clicking on the add submission, their video of themselves doing it or what they've actually done. And there's also the possibility of the coach. They can attempt to do that 3 times, because that's what the systems are like built in to do. Right. And then they can only get that if it's actually assessed and marked. And then there's people like myself, or if you're given access in the future, where you could actually, if you had done this work with the skater, you wouldn't necessarily want them to submit the video, because it's a bit of a waste of time, because you know that they've done it. You could just go into the back office and actually just pass them on the certificate and allow them to go straight through. And that process is available for all of the courses. Okay. And it can be really helpful, because sometimes some of the skaters aren't lucky enough to have a coach. So it does mean that if they, you know, if they've got an external volunteer who's helping them, that they can actually do it through the video assessment. So everyone has got access to be able to do the program. Yeah, that all makes sense. Yep. Okay, and that's the final one there. And again, it's got the same thing, but it'll be restricted until you've actually either passed it or submitted it. Okay. Any questions? So we look what it says. Right. And you can see, because we had enrolled on the safety course and the off-ice tier 1 skills badge program, this person is now regarded as being enrolled in these 2 courses. And they come up as being where they actually are. They've not completed anything, but you can actually see that they're there.
you.